everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of Kicks Over Coffee. I have a friend of mine back on the show. I think he's done a few of these with us in the past and some shoe and shows. Stuart Jenkins, if you're not familiar, Stuart's been around our industry for a long time. Worked at Deckers, worked at Cruise for Shoes, started his own, and I think some of you may know him from his own shoe insole line, Blumaka. And Stuart's back here today because I think he's got some key findings for us around foam. He's been recycling foam for a couple of years now, making insoles, figuring out some of the challenges around making recycled end-of-life things. And I think, Stuart, when we were talking last, there were definitely some roadblocks around recycling foam and putting it into footwear. And I know you got frustrated and decided to innovate and try to change what was happening and what the roadblocks were. So first of all, thanks for coming back on, and tell me what you've been cooking the last, 12 months or so, as you guys look to expand and kind of provide like this new innovative end of life for our footwear industry.
Well, thanks for having me back on. I'm surprised I'm a guest of anyone twice, so you're generous. Yeah, Blumaka, we've really been committed to this idea that, since plastic lasts a long time, plastic should be used a long time. Be ideal if we didn't have plastic in the world, but we do, but it lasts a long time, so use it a long time. And one way to do that is to recycle it as many times as you can and use it for as long as possible. Most people don't think about foam as plastic. And furthermore, when we talk about single-use plastics, foam usually doesn't come out of anyone's mouth. But foam is a single-use plastic. And so that's what we've focused on cleaning up. And we initially set that up in China. And let me tell you, building factories during COVID has been, I used to have a full head of hair. And we really didn't get our factory operation set up in China and working efficiently until this September. Sort of 3 years of torture.
Wow. Yeah.
But you have to remember, when you're making recycled products in China, you have to make them from waste that is in China. You can't send foam or plastic from the United States into China. So all of the recycling that we're doing in the industry is doing a nice job of cleaning up China, and I'm all for that. But that doesn't address the end of life issue. What do you do with the foam in a shoe or a Croc at the end of its life in the North American hemisphere or in the United States? And so what we did is we went to Central America, found a facility that's 100% solar powered, and we set up a foam recycling or foam upcycling center there where we can take post-industrial foam, factory foam, but we could also take things like old wetsuits or flip-flops or injection molded EVA or PU recovery slides or sandals or Crocs. And if we could partner with shoe companies and extract the foam midsole from those shoes, we have the facility now to have an end-of-life solution where that foam is no longer going to the landfill, but can go back in and make another product. We don't necessarily think it has to be another shoe. It could be. You could take a high-performance running shoe foam and turn it into a hiking boot or a work boot or a flip-flop or a sandal, but then you might want to turn it into a yoga block or a anti-fatigue mat, or heck, I'm sitting here on a little cushion for my chair. I actually made this for outdoor furniture, patio furniture. But this ability to, in this hemisphere, have an end-of-life solution for foam, I think is important. We just need the brands to help us work on the reverse logistics and say we're committed to designing product or helping deconstruct product, and because they want to take those uppers and refabricate them into other fabrics. But we now have a solution in this hemisphere for foam.
Yeah.
And,
so let me ask you
deal.
about that, because you showed the anti-fatigue mats and things like that. I know that we've been seeing, and I know with your insoles, I have a pair. you've been working very hard to make that like a high value, high content recycled foam that you're sticking in there. Are we now at your facility in the Western Hemisphere? Are we at the point now where you can actually make full uppers, full shoes, not just, because I think it's great to have flip flops and things like that, but are we talking like at commercially available production?
We we have just opened up a 4,200 square meter facility that has a Strobel and sewing line. So, I mean, last week we made this shoe, every piece of this shoe, stitched it, so forth, not for a customer, just to prove we could do it, as a Blumaka insole in it. And then this is what we call our cut and buff version of our technology, where we're taking, the scraps of other midsoles, or this has some wetsuit in it where this doesn't even have a mold to make it, put an outsole on it. And so that now if somebody says, I want to take my old shoe foam and I want to convert it into some footwear item, we could do that with shoes, sort of the sidewalk surfer-esque type of product, or this is leather. And that gives people this option of converting their old end-of-life shoes into something productive, and it gives them the way to use footwear foam in more footwear. They have to come up with the design and the criteria, but our factory there is 100% solar power, on-site healthcare for all the employees, a central commissary to feed everyone so the food is safe and healthy, and it's 100% duty-free, which is a big deal into the US. All the components going in for assembly are duty-free. And of course, you're closer to the market in terms of, you're 4.5 hours from Los Angeles to the facility. So you're not flying all day and all night to go check on development.
Well, I think it is an issue because, I know some people are trying to set up facilities in China and Asia, and shipping back old shoes across the world. It's almost a reverse supply chain back to Asia isn't exactly the greatest way to reduce your footprint by creating a new line of it. So
the government of China won't even allow it.
Right.
So we tried to take wetsuits from the United States, and they were charging us new wetsuit duties. Essentially, the cost of importing a brand new wetsuit into China to bring in remnants of wetsuits or scrap wetsuits or defective wetsuits to recycle. So you can't have you can't send foam or waste to China and Asia legally at this point.
Right. And my guess is in the coming years, at some point, Africa will also start to block a lot of what we see of especially the apparel waste that we see piling up in Africa. At some point, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. And then all of a sudden, there's no more outlets, right? Like if you'd want to donate it to, Goodwill, and then Goodwill can't use it or resell it, they can't dump it anywhere. It's going to go in the landfill. There's not, the end of life will be the end of life. And it can't be out of sight, out of mind, because it's going to be going back into our communities instead of someone else's communities.
Well, it's right. And I guess I kind of just got tired of talking about end of life solution for the foam and shoes, and said, the only way to do it is to do it in this hemisphere. The only way to do it is to offer both the ability to use high content recycled material, foam material, and then convert it into finished goods, whether that finished good is a yoga block or a car mat for your car, or a anti-fatigue mat for industry or whatever, or a midsole for a shoe, or if you want a higher performance midsole, you convert it to something like that.
Yeah.
But we're all going to have to hold hands if we want to convert foam, a single-use plastic, into new product. And I can't just have people send me their old shoes. I have to have some place to put them. I have to have the help of the major shoe brands, and we're going to have to whether the industry wants to start a consortium as a place to deconstruct shoes and pull them apart in an efficient way, or I'm not sure what the industry is going to want to do, but the one thing I can tell you is that the foam from old midsoles and old flip-flops and old wetsuits and old car seats is a valuable, productive resource at the Blumaka facility. We can use it. I mean, down in El Salvador, they're making these injection molded products, right? Every time you make one of these, a pair of these, you get this left. This sprue weighs 25% as much as a pair of these. We have the ability to get enough of this to make 1,000 anti-fatigue mats a day and 5,000 pair of shoes. Excuse me, a week.
So
And
5,000 5,000 pairs of shoes a week is what the capacity is right now.
On just out of this waste post-industrial material, just out of this material, our factory in El Salvador has the space to make 6,000 pair of shoes a day. But the point is that there's nothing wrong with this foam. It just didn't end up in this injection molded crock type knockoff product. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just as good as this. So why not find a use for it? But then at the end of life for this, or, there's a lot of foam in these shoes. And if we find a way to partner with the industry to pull that foam off, it's a valuable resource. It can be used to make many wonderful things.
Let me ask you, for post-consumer use, where somebody's been using it for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, however long, it's been compressed down, it's been used a lot. How do you look at putting it back into a shoe? So foam from a shoe going back into a shoe. What's the performance that you get back out of it? Because I mean, I think what we were concerned about as you look at recycled shoes, how many loops can you get out of recycled content to make a consumer still feel like it's a good quality product and they're getting good value out of it?
Well, we don't know the exact answer, and I don't think the answer is the same for every foam. There are some foams out there that are really hard and so forth already. But I think that what you have to do is look at blending your resources. So if you blend a wetsuit with let's say somebody's gone out there and foolishly run 1,000 miles on their shoes, and the person weighed just a biscuit over 350 pounds, and they really packed them out. You blend that packed out foam with other things, or maybe some recycled, post-industrial recycled versus post-consumer, and you blend that into a package, and you say, okay, the ultimate goal is I need this to be a 35 durometer or a 40 durometer, or a 45 or a 50. The ability to take that foam and blend it and use it and consume it will still end up with a terrific consumer product. Or if it's really, really hard, put it in a floor mat for your car, right? Because this is not requiring cushioning.
Right.
But you're still keeping it into a post-consumer environment. My goal is to make sure that the foam that we bring back is post-consumer. I think it's short-sighted to say that just because it came from a shoe, it has to go back to a shoe. I think that would be ideal. I think that should be our first choice, but I don't think it should limit our sense of what we can do with recycled foam. And we are proving, I get a little, I guess, excited about this, or maybe my wife would say I'm a little militant about it, but we don't have any problem making recycled foam that outperforms on many metrics virgin foam. Our cushioning will last longer. We give up a tiny amount on weight or specific gravity, but we're making midsoles that are going 500 and 600 miles without losing any of their cushioning compared to virgin EVA that goes 150 miles. So the process of chopping up this foam and then putting it in a binder seems to enhance its life or be synergistic. I mean, what we need to work with the industry on is now finding binders that are made of natural materials or biomaterials or recycled materials so that we can get further away from any use of petrochemicals. I think that's the next step for Blumaka, is finding somebody that's really committed to using binders. Right now, we could get bio binders, but they cost twice as much, and so far nobody is twice as committed to price. I mean, but that's the next evolution for us. But I wouldn't worry. I don't worry about performance at all. I mean, my joke is we can't perform as poorly as most virgin foam.
Well, when you're in the facility, I know you've also been committed to production, sustainable production. So obviously, you said it's powered by solar panel. You're thinking about the properly treating workers there, but also when you were making Blumaka, you were very specific about reducing water waste. So what other ways when you guys are making footwear there, are you thinking differently about making it in a better way?
Again, and it's hard to compare because unfortunately most of the environmental impacts you read about with foam are carbon-based, carbon footprint. Somehow we've kind of got Velcroed to that concept. So to make a midsole, for us to make a midsole for an athletic shoe, we use a tablespoon of water. I have reason to believe that that's 235 tablespoons less than it takes to make an EVA sole, right? So we believe we're using about 99% less water to make a midsole of a shoe that's made of EVA. We also use no silicone mold release in our process. We generally cure with atmospheric temperature or air cure. Sometimes if the humidity's up, we might have to warm something up, but we don't use high heat or high pressure or high temperatures. So we use less water, we use less heat. Because we don't use mold release in our molds, we don't need to clean our foam with solvents and toxins. And because our soles are clean, we use less primer, which is probably the worst ingredient left in footwear making. So throughout that process, we're trying to be better. I tell people Blumaka, and the one thing you'll always hear me say is we're not perfect. We're just better. Mm-hmm. And we will get better tomorrow. As long as we're wearing shoes, and as long as those shoes are cushioned, there is no perfect answer. And but we've tried to look at it. And if you said, what are the 5 pillars of Blumaka? It's what it's made from, recycled materials, how it's made, less water, less silicone, so forth. So the where, or the what and the how are very important. Most people don't talk about the how. The where, we're now making regionally. We're not in Europe yet, but we want to be. The 4th pillar of sustainability is durability. This foam has to last. If it's designed to cushion your foot, it should not be failing at 150 miles. It should not. And the industry should be reporting how long the foam in their shoes is lasting. And the final thing is the end of life solution, which we are now have a solution for here in this hemisphere. And so those 5 things of what it's made from, how it's made, where it's made, how long it lasts, and what you do with it at the end of the life are the 5 things that we've really built a company around. And now we just need to find more brands and partners that say this idea of end of life solution is something that we're serious about. We want to do something productive with this foam that we're making. And we're going to have to partner with people that actually want to do it, because the solution is now here. This is not theoretical. We have the facility, we have the ability, we have the testing data that proves that we can put it in new products. end-of-life solutions for footwear foam is real, available, and it's a choice at this point.
Awesome.
And that's a cool thing.
Yeah. And folks, reach out to Stuart. You can contact me at FDRA, and I'm happy to do an introduction to Stuart. But I always tell people it's worth a cup of coffee. It's worth a call just to figure out ideas, commercialization, learn more about that. And I know Stuart's been very open about innovation in our industry and helping many companies innovate and change how they do things for the better. And it could be new product lines. It could be foam mats to go with, your new yoga shoe line, or maybe you want a yoga shoe line itself, and you can figure out how to, work with Stuart. Maybe you ship it uppers from somewhere else and it's stitched there and brought in, and you can figure that out. But I think it behooves a conversation with Stuart on these things to look at it, as well as options for sending shoes end of life. I'm a big believer in trying to get as many miles out of every pair as possible. When we're done, as a rich country as we are, we still have many people in our country that need shoes that are, I would guess, say, shoe impoverished in some ways.
Yeah.
People forget, in certain places in this country, there's still not indoor plumbing. Even the area I'm from in North Carolina, there's still areas where there's not indoor plumbing. So it's great to have that. But then once those people use that for the second round, what do you do with it? And I think Stuart's really providing a playbook that people can look at and consider and actually plug in right now. So I encourage you to do that. But Stuart, before I let you go, how's the coffee at the facility? Because this is Kicks Over Coffee. So can you send me some coffee? Are you making coffee there too?
Well, I'll tell you what, the coffee in El Salvador, Central America, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we're getting a lot of waste material out of Guatemala and so forth, and leather out of some leather out of Mexico and so forth. But I'm not a coffee drinker, I'm sad to tell you, but they tell me that the coffee in the facility is the best. And not to bribe the guy that's interviewing me, but we will get you some coffee. And then since you're the coffee expert,
there you go.
The next time we talk, you're going to tell me how that coffee is. And I feel like I know something about foam and can speak to that intelligently, but coffee.
Yeah, that's all right.
Not my thing.
Just do not recycle the grounds. Don't use them there and recycle them and send them to me. Okay. I know you're that too. Well, I'm looking for virgin coffee material at this point, right? So
look at you destroying the planet one bean at a time, one bean at a time.
Well, a caffeinated employee is a happy employee, so I'm sure that
maybe that's my problem. I need to drink more of that stuff.
It could be. Well,
yeah, a little too uptight here. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Have to get some coffee.
That's funny. Well, folks, as always, thanks for joining us for this Kicks Over Coffee, where we just have casual conversations over a cup of coffee. At least I am. Stuart's not. I'll drink two for him. And we try to look at what's happening in the footwear industry and some solutions as we kind of go through this. And we're all dealing with questions around sustainability and end of life. And I think conversations like this and conversations offline where you can contact Stuart and talk about what your issues are and how maybe you could work with him on some new solutions and new ways of doing business. I think, that's always a win-win. So Stuart, thanks again. It's great to see you as always. And, rooting for you and the effort that you guys are putting on with the products that you're launching and the waste you're keeping out of our landfills. So thanks for that too.
Well, thank you. And thanks to the FDRA and for pushing these ideas and agendas out there. And, at Blumaka, we say, better products, cleaner planet. And that's what we're committed to. And we'd love to partner with anybody that shares that value system. Awesome. Folks, as always, kicksovercoffee.com. You can see all the other interviews that we have on there. We've got new interviews coming up that are going to be launching in 23. And of course, our podcast, The Shoe and Show, drops every Monday. And FDRA is just trying to be a platform for conversations, ideas, and solutions. It's really what we're all about. And these things are not only fun, but hopefully informative. And just keep listening and keep drinking coffee, keep wearing kicks.